on stage, Aya Asaf, the co-founder of Koala Picks, Johnny Nixon, the commercial director of Drink Dry LLC, Ahmad Yusuf, CEO of Minimalist, Hassan Tamimi, managing director of The Little Things, and Namrata Badraja, the co-founder of Shift Eco, and your moderator for the session is Cynthia McCool, the director at PwC. Guys, if you've got a nice photograph above you, just sit right underneath it. That's the best way to do it, so we can work out who you all are. Thank you very much, panel. Have a good session.
So welcome to our panel discussion on the D2C landscape. I'll be your moderator today, and just excuse me because I might be coughing a bit here and there. So the GCC market has undergone significant transformation over the past couple of years, and the D2C model has been at the forefront and has seen critical and significant traction. So this shift has been propelled and underpinned by a number of factors, including high digital engagement, and the region being actually one of the highest digitally engaged in the world, as well as a shift in consumer behavior and a growing emphasis on personalization. Now, for new brands that are launching, their concern, or the main critical element, is to identify the right selection of the online versus offline channel. And the choice between online and offline, and within the online realm, the strategic approach, it takes a nuanced understanding of the market. So from your perspective, and here I'll start with Ahmad. So from your perspective, what are the factors that brands should consider when they are identifying the right approach for their business, especially for new businesses or young businesses?
Sure, so I'd like to introduce myself, Ahmed, the founder of Minimalist. We sell watches and accessories throughout the Gulf region, and we've grown to great scale in the past 7 years. We've scaled to more than 50,000 customers across the Gulf region, and how I would like to put it is, product is the absolute key when it comes to an online brand. And once you've got the fundamentals, which is your product and service, I would say you scale it up as much and as fast as possible. So how we look at it is we look at a few of the constraints in the business, which is your business goals as well as your efficiency. What I mean by business is having your right inventory levels, and to scale up as fast as possible, you've got to make sure that you've got your customer acquisition cost in check. And how we scale that up is we look at profit per order, and that's quite critical. And the way we do it is we scale up as fast as possible to acquire customers, making sure the efficiency of each customer is there. And it's all about repeat customers henceforth, which is pure profit. And once you've got the product right, it's the 80-20 principle, and we scale up as fast as possible. Making sure you've got your creative in check. Creatives is the key to success in online market. And that's how we've done it through our online channels as well as offline channels through our retail store.
That's very interesting. And Hassan, from your perspective, so what are the key factors that brands should consider, again, within the subject, in going online versus offline or an omni-channel approach?
So great question. I think throughout the day, people have been discussing the similar topics. Data is one of the greatest drivers, I would say, when it comes to looking at both online and offline, understanding the data and using that data in your advantage to establish a good online presence versus an offline presence as well. Loyalty plays a huge factor. I mean, combining the loyalty from online to offline is something that's tough, it's tricky. People in store want a different type of loyalty program, while online they expect more percentages, discounts, free deliveries, etc. Again, when we look at the data, that's the most critical place to understand the line between online and offline in the presence of e-commerce.
That's true. So data is an important topic, and I think we'll deep dive into that a bit later. And so Aya, you've chosen more weightage on the online channel as well as the B2C. And going online, it takes also a strategic approach. You can go on marketplaces, you can go on D2C, or you can be on social commerce. So what are the factors that enabled you to take on this weight between the channels that you cover?
So as a startup, obviously you don't have enough resources in the beginning to go mass, right? So you need to pick the platforms where your main customer is shopping at. And in my case, my main customer is moms or parents who are health conscious and want to buy healthy snacks for their kids and for the family. And we decided to take a D2C approach through our website as the main selling point. Two very good points about D2C is, first of all, you're so close to your customer, so you get almost instant feedback on any new launch or product or anything, which is amazing for a small brand in the beginning to quickly change stuff and react to stuff. And also, you get to keep your margin, which is very important, especially when you're starting. You try to, break even fast and keep as much of the margin to yourself. Obviously, the downside is, or not downside, but I mean, you need to grow fast as well. So at a point, you need to start thinking, okay, where are the other online platforms that I can be on that can bring me a bit more volume? So that's when we decided to also but like balance between our own website and then being on other online aggregators and supermarkets and stuff that are also focused online where we know our main customers will be.
So it takes a deep understanding also of the consumers on where they are present, how they like to shop. Yeah. And Johnny, from your perspective as well, so how do you determine the best approach, and how have you done that for your company?
So in terms of looking at what we did, because we are a non-alcoholic drinks marketplace, was first things first, it was about how do we bring the best quality to consumer, but then when deciding upon channel, it was very much around occasion as well. With the nature of the products that we have, we wanted to make sure that we are hitting all the touch points that people would look for from non-alcoholic beverages, whether that's celebration occasions in HoReCa, whether that's on retail shelves in a smaller scale to begin with, and then also really providing that occasion and quality element within the e-commerce marketplace and educating and connecting with people within that marketplace as well. So it was really e-commerce first because we wanted to create that selection and that quality element for the end consumer. But we almost worked a little bit backwards. We saw the demand from B2B, from the HoReCa channel to revolutionize that space, and retail kind of followed suit on the back of that. So we almost had an omni-channel approach, almost by accident, but it was kind of just sped up in terms of the process that we wanted to follow.
So that's interesting, and we were discussing right before on the challenges that the businesses in general are facing with the supply chain disruptions, with the changing consumer habits. So in your perspective, what are the key challenges that D2C businesses are facing, or specifically with you?
I think particularly now the supply chain challenge is affecting everyone, and it's how you adapt and overcome and change some internal process to accommodate that. I think from the initial start perspective, when you're starting out, and to give an example, we had around 15 or 16 SKUs. You have no read on rate of sale, right? So, we spent a lot of money on air freight and simply accommodating to consumer demand when we first began, because we have product with expiry date. We do not know how the customer will respond to each individual SKU. So it's about being really adaptive and kind of swallowing your pride and understanding that there will be increased logistics costs to begin with, but then after that it's introducing the right processes, it's understanding the consumer SKUs that are performing better than one another, analyzing those data points. As you said, data is very, very important, and ensuring that that's always got continuous flow.
And Hassan, so since you cover the wider GCC area and Egypt and some wider Middle East, so how has the supply chain in general affected you? And moving on later as well on the consumer side, how do you keep on evolving your business to stay relevant to consumers?
So the supply chain, as mentioned, it's always a challenge. It's never, I mean, yes, you do have some nice, smooth roads that you have to go through, but right now, especially with the Red Sea and what's happening there, we have huge delays. We have congestion in Jebel Ali. It affects overall. I mean, I have containers that are waiting for 10 days, 30 days. We're waiting for it to be offloaded off a ship. So the rule in business is always find alternatives and find solutions. There's never a time that you just stop. As mentioned, we have to suck it up sometimes and find ways around it instead of just sitting there and saying no. Like Egypt was one example. The currency right now in Egypt is not as good as it's supposed to be. And us selling collectibles, novelties, high premium statues, it was a challenge for us in the beginning. We were all in doubt whether it's going to sell or not, but then looking at the population of Egypt, we did send it, we launched our first retail store in Egypt a year ago, and it's been a great success. And from there, we've been moving forward on the Egyptian market. Right now with the Red Sea issue, instead of sea shipments, we do road shipments across. We were talking about shipments coming from Asia. We receive it in Jebel Ali and send it up to Saudi, and then from Europe, we receive it in Saudi and send it by road to Dubai. So it's always, I mean, there's always alternatives, there's always solutions, and it's critical that we address it and find ways around it, I would say. Moving towards the second question that you asked, where we're heading with the supply chain, I mean, where we're heading with growth in the industry is always about finding that niche, being different, being more advanced against your competitors, ensuring that you can introduce new metrics, new processes, and finding that sweet spot that can make you successful, of course.
You mentioned also before how scaling a business is important, and generally scaling a D2C business, it's challenging in the sense of you need to identify new customers, capture new customers, but also retain them. So scaling a D2C business, it requires a strategy that hinges on customer engagement, marketing, and operational efficiencies. In your views, what are the key foundational elements that brands should consider for scaling a D2C business?
So I would say it's two main points. One, going back to data, which I already explained briefly. And second, do it step by step. I always say there's no rush in getting into it. Do it step by step. Do it properly, learn from your mistakes, and that's how you advance. For me, I started off 15 years ago in retail. It was one store. From one store, we've expanded. Now we have 5 stores. Again, people are telling me, why don't you expand to another 10, another 20? I always say, you learn from the 5. 5 is already a challenge. Expanding out of the UAE is already a challenge of its own. And then you just step by step do it. We introduced distributions a few years ago in 2019. Distribution has been great. We've separated the teams of retail and distribution, and we've seen the challenges that it also hosts. I mean, as a distributor, you have to cater your retailers that you're supplying, and then as a retailer, you want to favoritize your own retail as well. So there's always a challenge as well between retail and distribution, which is a whole different subject, I would say, as well.
And Namrata, you seem to have also some additions to the subject in terms of the elements that brands should consider when they are scaling.
So I think when you're launching a brand, I run a company which is in sustainable products. We work with companies and individuals on their sustainability journey. I think understanding your target audience is really important. And I think as a startup, I think to your point, when you're starting up, you initially just need to test which platforms work for you, whether it's D2C, whether it's a marketplace, whether it's offline, because as a startup, you are not cash rich, right? You have to make sure you are getting a good ROI on your investments, your marketing spend, your cost of acquisition is as less as possible. So I think first is about understanding your sweet spot, which elements work well for you. So I'll give you the example of Shiftico. We started with a e-commerce first option, with a platform. We very quickly realized that our cost of acquisition for new customers was extremely high. Because we're working in UAE is a small population, our target audience is quite niche. And then you say, okay, how can I reach more customers? So you start having an omni-channel presence, you start looking at collaborations. For example, we partnered with Etihad, we are now on their Green Rewards partner. We started doing, pop-ups at different companies, we tried Ripe Market. So we test to see where scale is. And then you refine your approach and you start investing more in the approach that's giving you more returns. So for us, our strategic partnerships were great because cost of marketing was zero, and it really helped us, get more eyeballs to our brand, to get more customers. So I think it's about finding that sweet spot and investing in it.
Now, it's interesting. You've tested different marketing techniques. What has proven to be most effective for you?
So I think for us, one part is, of course, our consumer business. The second vertical that Shiftico is really focused on is working with companies. So we help companies in their sustainability journey. We offer them sustainable office products. This whole B2B piece has really helped us get scale. We're now looking at expanding. We started acquiring customers in Saudi, and I think that's really worked well for us as a business.
That's very interesting. And even Aya and Koala Pics, I see a lot of storytelling on Instagram and in the marketing. So can you tell us more about also the marketing approaches that you take on?
Yeah, so testing obviously with social media, algorithms change like almost every day. And by time we realized that people love to know the story behind the brand, and people love to go behind the scenes and see what's happening. And we've been trying to do this as much as we can, just telling the story of the brand, how it started. We are just two parents who felt there's a need for healthy snacks because we couldn't find for our own kids. And we took this story onto social media, and then more parents started to relate to the story. And that's how you hook the brand. And even when I do events and markets, weekend markets almost every weekend, that's how I start introducing the brand. I'm a mom who didn't find healthy snacks for her kids, so decided to take matters into her own hand. And people love it. People love the idea of a personal story of how it started rather than a big commercial thing, They relate to it. So definitely storytelling is a very big thing. Behind the scenes, we take them behind the scenes in our kitchen. You see we're extracting colors from vegetables, or people love to know how the products are made. So definitely storytelling. And the last thing is content creation in terms of real content. So we've been seeing how the content has been developing throughout the years, and people now are more into raw content, like selfie kind of, here I'm showing you today what I'm doing, rather than something fancy and a big production for like an ad. So definitely when brands know how to do it, it becomes so much more efficient in terms of marketing.
So generally around also personalization, whether in the raw or in terms of storytelling and all of that. And personalization is also key into retaining customers. And so Ahmad, I have also a question in regards to customer retainment. And now more brands are pivoting online. The competition is increasing, it's intensifying. So the challenge is not only in capturing new customers, but it's also in retaining them and having this long-term loyalty. So what is your take on that?
So I believe retention is one of the most important things in a business. If you can acquire customers, I'd say 1,000 dirhams, and at the end of the day, you haven't got that customer back, it's a lost customer, and it's a lost customer for your life. Retention is one of the most important metrics to us, and we look at it on a very frequent basis. Knowing that you've got high retention shows that your business is performing well, right? The number one thing we look at is customer loyalty. And how do we do that? We do that by providing the best customer service as possible, while keeping your product quality at the highest possible grade, and looking at how you can build a meaningful relationship. Because I believe success is a byproduct of the meaningful relationships you create with your customers. We keep in touch with most of our customers, whether it's through email, whether it's through other platforms like WhatsApp. I believe one of the most important things to a business is, again, retention and treating your customers well. We don't look at, I would actually invite all of you to experience our customer service. We've got one of the best customer service experiences here. And the way we do that is we don't just say, look, 30 days, it's over, your exchange policy is out. We go above and beyond. So somebody who walks into the store after 5 years, they've used a watch, and they say, look, it's not working. So we take the watch, we repair it, we change what is required, we do the maintenance. We say, please give us your address, and we do that whole thing for free. And that's what creates community. You can copy products from other brands, you can never replace the community.
Quite interesting. So within scaling a business, we've covered customer retention strategies, marketing and storytelling, and generally the foundational elements for scaling. Now, I want to look also at the operational side, and maybe that's a question for you also, Namrata. As your D2C business scales, how do you decide on the functions that you should bring in-house versus outsourced?
So I think when you're trying, as small businesses, we are working on tight budgets, right? So I think the way we've done it is you have to see as a business what are the core competencies you need, and those you try to keep in-house. And then you look at the cost of having, for example, at Shift Eco, we have taken the 3PL warehouse, our warehousing and our logistics is outsourced. But how much control do we have on it? So we make sure that, you know, either me or my co-founder Sukriti is managing the team, our warehouse team, making sure there's a feedback loop from our consumers, because as a D2C business, it's absolutely critical that your consumer experience is amazing. So as long as you have control over it and you're overseeing it, outsourcing some parts of your functions make sense. We've outsourced our finances. We have a marketing team that works with us also on a part-time basis. Because what this does is, as startups, you have to be very agile. And to be agile, you have to have budgets and money to play with. So I think you need to figure out what works and what doesn't work. Having said that, outsourcing has its own issues. It's not as seamless. But I think when you're outsourcing, it's about finding that sweet spot. We've tested a lot of 3PL providers. We know what works for us. And it took us 2-3 bad experiences to find the one that actually works. So it's surely not foolproof, and it requires a lot of work, but it really depends on the kind of money you're playing with.
And it's interesting that you outsource your marketing, and I know that marketing, the function, is usually a debate on whether you keep it in-house or you outsource it. So Johnny, what is your perspective on that?
I think with marketing, it's getting to the stage where you need to be far more proactive than reactive when going from outsourcing to in-house. And the more channels you build and the bigger the requirement grows. So if you take, for example, moving from simply a D2C model to then introducing B2B, elements of trade marketing in there, you need a full-scale team who are able to execute that. And it's not just coming up with the ideas. The execution is absolutely key, and making sure it's done. As a startup business, you need to operate at a level further than your competition that we're established in the market. So being able to introduce that playbook, introduce those levels of standards, you need to bring that in-house when you get to that stage, and being able to have that influence over the key stakeholders within the business.
And I know, you've gone with that also direction onto first insourcing marketing, then outsourcing, and then again. So how would you also consider it?
So we tried in the beginning to do it in-house, okay? But I'm a marketeer by background. However, back then, digital wasn't that big of a market, you know? We used to be a very traditional use of marketing. So I decided, okay, it shouldn't be hard. I can run an ad on Instagram. How hard would it be? But then you realize there's so much more into it. And then I decided, okay, let's take it for someone else to do their job. And then they do it, and it's fine, it's okay. But at a point you want to have this customized, personalized experience on your social media where like, come behind the scene and come see that. And people want to see faces, so they wanted to see my face or the face of my chef. So I felt like, let's bring the content in again, and then maybe just only outsource the paid media part, where that needs really the expertise of social media managers. But then content creation came back in because we feel it's very personalized to the brand itself.
Thank you for that. So I know that our time is up. Do we have a couple of minutes for No. Okay. Thank you so much then for your insightful discussion. This has been very important in terms of considerations and strategies that you've implemented. And thank you for listening.